Hello, I'm in my somewhat chaotic kitchen today because I'm going to do some more batch cooking to fill the freezer. I'm Liz Zorab and this is Byther Farm. I've started by peeling and chopping 2 large onions and I've got them in the pan now starting to sweat off. It's probably quite loud because I'm cooking, but there we go. So the onions are in, and sweating is the process by which you don't cook the onions really hard or until they're dark, but you allow them to soften. Basically, they're going to get hot in their own steam. So just popping a lid on them. That's a bit quieter. So in there, I put a tiny bit of water because I cook without using lots of extra fat in there, but you can use a little bit of sunflower oil or olive oil or even butter, just to stop them sticking to the bottom of the pan. So I'm using a very heavy base pan. I've put a tiny bit of water in there and I will let them, I don't really want them to brown very much, but I do want them to go soft and translucent. So while I'm waiting for the onions to be ready, I'm going to get everything else together that I'm going to use in this dish today. I've got some chicken stock. This is a homemade chicken stock. I've just taken it out of the freezer. I'll defrost this. And I've got some courgettes from the summer. So those are just cut and cubed, frozen as they were. Didn't cook them or anything first, so they're ready to go straight in. And I've got some Greek gigantes beans, which were also frozen, and I've boiled those for about 8 minutes, and they are just lovely. So they're large, they're soft, and they're ready. So in with my onions, I'm now going to add some mixed herbs and some salt and pepper. This looks like I'm putting a lot of these dried herbs in, but I have got a kilo of meat to go in here. So this will be a batch cook of quite a lot of food at once. And there is some sea salt, about 1.5 pinches of sea salt, and some coarse ground black pepper. I'm using a good healthy handful there, and I will add more in later if needs be. So let's give this a quick stir. And the reason that I'm adding the herbs at this early stage is I want the heat to start releasing the oils that are in the dried herbs, and I want all those flavours to infuse through the onions, so when I add everything else in and they are mixing against those onions, all those flavours are going to go right across the dish. I do need to be careful that they don't burn. The next thing to go in is my meat. So this is a minced beef, or it's a ground beef. It's about 5% fat, so it's a very low fat one. Again, if you're using one with a slightly higher fat content, that will already be slightly tastier because it's a low fat one, and in my opinion all the taste is in the fat. So because it's a low fat meat, I've got to make sure that I add lots of taste in with the other ingredients. So I've actually added 1.5 kilos of beef in here, and the next thing to do is to break all this up and mix it in with the onion and let that start cooking. I've added some water to ensure that it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. And then the next 2 ingredients to go in are some gluten-free Worcestershire sauce and quite a lot of tomato puree. So that's 200 grams of tomato puree. That's a double concentrate tomato puree. I'm stirring it really well to mix the tomato puree right through the onion and beef mixture so that it's evenly distributed. I'm turning the heat down to medium. Pop the lid on for a few minutes. Before I went gluten-free, this is the point that I would have added in some stock cubes, but so many stock cubes have gluten in them, or they have a really high level of salt on them, both of which I have to avoid. So I use homemade stock, and this is a chicken stock, but that's fine. It will still add tons of flavour. And I'm also going to add some other vegetables in here now. So I'm going to put in the courgettes, that's the zucchinis, green and gold ones. I'm going to put in my Greek gigantes beans. I'm also going to add a can of green lentils. And then I'm going to go and explore and see what other vegetables I've got. The reason for adding the green lentils is not because I like the taste of lentils, but because they're very similar in texture to the minced beef. So they bulk that out and make it go just that much further. And that's very much what this meal is about for me. It's providing something warming and tasty, something that's nutritious, but also something that hasn't cost an absolute fortune. So the more that I can pad out that meat and make a much bigger meal, the better. I've got some baby carrots from the garden, some chard, a little bit of parsley, a few sprouts. I will add some more of these in, but these go in first. And I'll just carry on adding to that pot as I find some more vegetables. So, sometime later, I have also added in a whole load of chopped fresh leeks, and I put the lid on it. I've turned the heat right down to the lowest setting, and I've left that just really slowly cooking for about half an hour. The next thing I'm going to do is put it into a big casserole dish and get that in the oven. And while the oven is on, I'm going to put a whole load of potatoes in there to make jacket potatoes. And once everything's cooked, then as the oven's cooling down, I'm also going to cook some meringues in there. So this is again that thing that I was talking about, or if I've got the electricity on, I'll use it for more than one thing if I can. So there we go, one very large, one very full casserole dish. This will now go into the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 centigrade and 160 fan. I'm really sorry, I don't know what that is in gas mark, but my guess would be about 5 or 6. So I'm going to go in there for about another half an hour, and the only reason I put it in the oven is that I actually prefer the taste of food like this when it has been oven cooked. I think it just adds a particular something, a richness to it almost. I have checked it for flavour. It doesn't need any more salt or pepper. It's tasting really lovely. The chicken stock that I put in it has added a lot of flavour to it, and the flavour of the different vegetables is coming out really nicely. So that will go in there, and then I will then portion it into small containers to go into the freezer. Each container is this sort of size, and some of them I will fill to about 2/3 of the way through, and then I will top them with either mashed or cooked sliced potatoes so that they're ready as a meal. Some of them I will put pasta into the bottom of, cooked pasta, and then put the sauce over the top, so it's like a bolognese sauce. And then I'm also going to make some lasagnas using a gluten-free pasta, which I'll then interlayer the lasagna sheets and a white or cheese sauce and the meat in layers. Put that back in the oven, cook it a bit more, and then cut it into portions that are about 2/3 of the size of this. So one person size portions, and get individual portions into the freezer as well. This much should do me, well, an awful lot of meals. I'm hoping to get between 12 and 20 meals out of this. And by adding pasta and potatoes, or you could even do it with rice, but by adding other vegetables or other carbs to those meals, you're making that little piece of meat and all the vegetables with it just go that much further. So I hope you found that interesting. If you'd like me to share some more recipes, please let me know by leaving a comment. If you hated my recipe, also let me know. And so wherever you are in the world and whatever you've got planned for the day, I hope it's a good one. I also hope you'll join me again next time.